Hello, and welcome to another 9-minute Bible study. Our starting point, 2 Chronicles 28. We'll start with verse 1. And while you are getting there, as the chapter begins, the economy of the nation of Judah is in wonderful shape, as is its foreign relations with its neighbors. The army is strong. The security inside the nation was strong. Everything regarding the nation was in strong shape. Why? Because up to that point, the people of Judah worshiped the Lord their God, and they followed the morality of the Old Testament law. As long as the nation did this, the nation, it was politically secure, militarily secure, economically secure, socially secure, and diplomatically secure. When a nation worships the Lord, when they follow the morality of the Lord, the 5 things that we just mentioned, those will be in order. As chapter 28 begins, Ahaz becomes the king of Judah, and he decides to upset everything in the nation. Verse 1. Ahaz was 28 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 horrible, miserable years in Jerusalem. But he did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord, like David his father. In other words, David, he was a man after God's own heart. Ahaz, he doesn't even know God at all, so there's no way he can be a man after God's own heart. What type of ruler was he? Verse 2. For he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. The kings of Israel, they rejected the Lord their God. They established idols in the north and the south of the country, and they sacrificed to those gods. Ahaz, he's going to do the exact same thing. He is going to reject the Lord his God and begin to worship idols. The second part of verse 2, and made also molten images for Baal. Verse 3. Moreover, he burned incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burned his children with fire, after the abominations of the heathen whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. Verse 4. He sacrificed also and burned incense in high places, and on the hills, and in under every green tree. So what did this guy do? He rejected the Lord his God. He built temples for all his new false gods. He threw his own children into the fire. This man was an evil and despicable person. Now, when this man took the throne, the nation had been worshiping the Lord. Now, under his reign, they are rejecting the worship of the Lord their God. The nation before his reign, morally, they were following the Old Covenant, the Old Testament law. Now, what are they doing? Rejecting the Lord their God and his morality. Remember the first 2 commandments about having no other gods before you and making idols to worship. The king had already broke number 1 and 2, and he is going to go a long way to breaking 3 through 10 and the rest of the Old Testament law as well. Now, when a nation worships the Lord, when the nation is moral in the sight of God, they will be what? Economically secure, politically secure, socially secure, diplomatically secure, and militarily secure. When the first 2 are in order, the next 5 things falls into place. What happens? Verse 5. Wherefore the Lord his God delivered him into the hands of the king of Syria, and they smote him defeated him in battle, and carried away a great multitude of them captive, and brought them to Damascus. Let's hold there for a second. So what happened? The wonderful military of Judah, which Ahaz inherited, they fought a war against Syria, and they lost. A number of the people were deported from Judah and forced to live in Syria. The military, it was defeated and it was broken. The second part of verse 5. And he was also delivered into the hand of the king of Israel, who smote him with a great slaughter. Verse 6. For Pekah the son of Remaliah slew in Judah 120,000 in one day, which all were valiant men, because they had forsaken the Lord God of their fathers. So, militarily secure is now militarily bankrupt. Why? The rejection of the Lord their God, the rejection of his morality. The military, it is defeated, it is gone. It gets worse. Verse 7. And Zikri, a mighty man of Ephraim, slew Maaseiah the king's son, and Azrikam the governor of the house, and Elkanah that was next to the king. So, what do we see? The prince, the heir to the throne, is dead. The prime minister to the king is dead. The chief of staff of the king is dead. So, what had been once a politically secure kingdom is now politically bankrupt because the leadership of the country, they are being killed by the enemy. So what have we seen? Militarily bankrupt, politically bankrupt. Why? Because they were spiritually and morally bankrupt. Are we together on this? Now, let's go to verse 8. And the children of Israel carried away captive of their brethren 200,000 women, sons, daughters, and took also away much spoil from them, and brought the spoil to Syria. Let's deal with that last part first. They raided basically the economy of the country and took all the wealth and the money with them. So what do we see here now? We see 1, militarily bankrupt. 2, politically bankrupt. Now 3, economically bankrupt. Why? Because the nation is spiritually bankrupt and morally bankrupt. When the first 2 are in place, the next 5 follow in order. When the first 2, spiritual and moral, are not in place, the next 5 are going to fall apart. This is a trend that we see in the Old Testament, but it was a trend that Ahaz was willing to ignore. Why? Because he hated God that much. When one hates the Lord, the nation will be destroyed with it. And that's what we're seeing in chapter 28 of 2 Chronicles. And we'll pick up with this in our next lesson.